to a workshop on setting your goals now. The reason for this workshop now and the reason for setting goals now is because it's nearly the end of this year. The way I like to look at goals is how I like to start the year next. In other words, right now it's the end of 2024 and we're only, I hate to say it, less than 60 weeks away from the start of 2026, which is really scary. And when you do the maths, it's like 260 something weeks until the start of 2030. So it's really scary to think how fast time goes. In other words, if you don't have a plan of what you'd like to achieve, you'll only end up getting what you're given. You end up rolling on with someone else's goals. And I prefer in my life to make sure that I at least get as much of what I want out of my efforts as possible. So that's why goal setting, I think, is really important. I was introduced to it as a system way back in the 90s when I worked for an American insurance company. But before that, I always had goals, just like most people do. Call it, some people call them New Year's resolutions, and they sort of have what they'd like to do. But more specifically, when you learn how to set goals and put yourself in a direction or a trajectory, it makes a huge difference if you ask me. And the 5-step system that I came up with, which worked for me, I think is something that you can learn, you can teach, you can pass on to your other team members, your children, and generally do it collectively around your environment to achieve what you want to achieve and help other people achieve what they want to achieve. So the 5-step system is really simple, right? So to give you the introduction, the 5-step system is first off is to write it down. Second of all is to plan it out. Thirdly is to tell people about it, tell others. 4 is to involve people, and 5 is the action. And what I want to do today is just quickly go through and we'll discuss that. And then the second half of the session, we might actually sit down and set some goals using the planning that we've got. And obviously some Q&A at the end. So as an example, who's ever achieved some big goals in their life? You've actually physically sat down, wrote something down and said, I want to achieve this, and got out and achieved it. Most people have. Most people have. Who's ever missed a goal in their life? Sat down, written it down, wanted to achieve it, and never got anywhere near it. And that's perfectly okay. It's perfectly okay to fail at goals. It's not necessarily important that you achieve all your goals. What's really important is that you put yourself in trajectories to become the better person that you can be. That's what's most important. So to give you a real life example of that, I failed at 2 major goals this year, and I physically can't achieve them. I knew it a few months ago. So my 2 major goals this year was to finish writing my next book. Okay, so I've released 2 books so far that are all mine, and I really, really wanted to release another book, and I'm not going to get there, not even close. I probably got halfway through it, but there's no way in the world I was going to release it by June, and then I realized second half of the year was never going to happen. That was my major goal for this year. Second major goal was more around System 1357 and the partnership model and getting more and more partners on board. And because of the changes that happened mid-year, I was never going to achieve that either. But it didn't matter, because what happened was I reset some goals mid-year based on my, I guess I'll call this more of a lifelong goal rather than a 10-year goal. And one of the things I talk about today is your long-term goals. So my goals this year got superseded by a primary goal that I have for long-term goals. And that was to compete and win at the World Surfing Titles. So the moment I qualified for that, everything else that was a short-term goal was superseded by my long-term goal. So it's sort of not bad that I missed the other goals. It just got superseded by something that I've always wanted to do and always wanted to achieve. So that's some real world examples there about goal setting and how it's had a profound effect on myself. I'm not sure if anyone else wants to share a story like that, whether it was this year, last year, or in the past. But anyone's got a story like that, how they've had long-term goals and they've been superseded. Sorry, short-term goals have been superseded by long-term goals and everything worked out good. Everything changed. I've got plenty of them.
Yeah, even trying to think about like the goals being so. I was just looking back at some goals that I wrote down in the past as well, and they kind of like I've been one with like struggle with dates, like always setting like particular dates. So even though you got all the goals down, there hasn't really been a time frame around it, and that's something that I'm working on is getting that time frame around it and being more specific on the goals. Because sometimes you
Yep.
can go, what actually is the goal, and you kind of write down, and it's kind of like this big overview thing, but then drilling down because you want to come back and review those goals. And if you be more specific about it, then you can review them and then come back to them or adjust them and change them.
Measure them, yeah. And that's where it's easy for people in sport because they get given that agenda and goal and how to achieve what they need to achieve. Apart from the discipline of training and the ability to perform, the rest is done for them. They get told, let's use a major sporting event as an example. So the Olympics. Anyone that wants to go and qualify for the next Olympics knows what they need to do, whether it's regional qualification, national qualification, and when the Olympics is on, and so on. They already know that whole agenda, so they can map out their plan based on some specific timeframes that are given to them. If I'm a football team or a soccer team, netball team, whatever it is, baseball, I know at the start of the season where all my home games are, all the away games are, when the finals are on, when the grand finals on, all that's mapped out for me. Okay, so all I have to do is turn up and perform, train and perform, train and perform. See, in business, it's not like that. So in business, we have to create our own seasons. We have to create our own agendas. We have to create our own terms, our own home and away games, and do all that sort of, organizing what it is we want and how we're going to get there. So in sport, you get given that. You just have to perform. In business, we have to perform and create an agenda. Or else we're just busy. We're just spinning wheels. We're busy, and you can still have some success. But if you can choose what it is you want that success to look like, what's the grand final look like, what's the prize and reward, well, then you get more of what you want. That's the whole point. And that's one thing that happens in business. So you're right, Andrew, you're not alone. And it's a very typical thing because especially if you've been an employee for a long time, it's the same format. Someone else has an agenda and you haven't had to think about that. You turn up to work and someone gives you that agenda. And this is where real intelligence comes in this day of AI, okay, where there's so many ways to get things and information out so much easier. It's crazy how good this stuff is. You still need some real intelligence about how to apply all this stuff, okay? I'm calling it RWI, the new acronym. There you go, real world intelligence, okay? And I'm a huge fan of RWI along with AI, no problems at all. I know Tracy's an educator in AI, and AI is amazing. I can't believe how good it is, but you still need real world intelligence to handle people and manage yourself and to get the best out of what you want. So let's look at step one, writing goals. Writing down goals is really important. The reason why writing down goals is really important is because it crystallizes your thinking. So when you write something down, it's an extra emotion that goes into actually doing that. And when you're writing down what your goals are, whether it's the 10 or 20 things you want to achieve next year, you actually are thinking about them as you're writing them down. So it crystallizes your thoughts. Now, just quickly, I won't have time to go through all these. And a couple of ways you can write down goals is using the SMART formula or the SMART system, which is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. I like SMARTer goals, okay, so ER at the end. So SMART also stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound, but also evaluate and reward or reset at the end, okay? So you're constantly evaluating your SMART goals, and you want to work out whether it's still the right thing to do or not, whether you're going to reset that goal or not. So you're going to reward yourself or reset at the end. And that's what happens with smarter goals. So be specific. Once again, I could go over smarter goals for an hour. Goal mind mapping. So what that means is mind mapping means getting a bit of paper out and doing things like, a bit of a scribble pad like that one over there, where you put circles around the page. You go, well, here's a goal, here's a goal, here's home and away. And it's a bit more of a mind mapping thing where you get out a bit of paper and you have a look at your all the different things that are required to achieve goals. Okay. I've actually got some scribble pads here that show you what I used to do at ReNet, and I did exactly that many times, and all the time. Like every time I was away, I was on a plane, I was doing this mind mapping. Very, very consistent. Bullet journaling. Here's another system you can use, okay, which is creating a list, a bulleted list of all the different goals you want. You know, the 10 or 20 different goals, like I said at the start, but writing it down and pull on paper, that works as well. Affirmative goal statements. Another way of writing them down is to say, I am, I will, I have. Okay, be very positive with what you want to achieve. Okay, so when you're writing down, being affirmative. One thing I like, and I've never done it, to be honest with you, is vision board and picture-based goal writing. So when you're writing down, I've been into people's places and they have the vision board up. And I'm a huge fan of it, by the way. It's just something I've never done. Maybe it's because I've never needed to do it, but I'm a huge fan of vision boards. I think they're very impressive and they're very good. As long as you do the other 4 things with the vision board, you should be able to achieve way more than you ever thought you could. So I'm a huge fan of having it in front of you to achieve.
Yeah, that one's a really good one for creative people, because when I was teaching, that's what we would do, was we would have the kids create vision boards of the goals they wanted to achieve that year. And it was really cool as another what's the bloody word? Another like way of learning and achieving.
Absolutely.
I like it.
You know, especially for lifelong goals, like I want to go to Europe, you know, I want to climb Mount Everest, you know, they're not, unless it's this year, having those lifelong goals on a vision board is really, really important, you know, buying investment properties and doing these sorts of things. So I'm a huge fan of vision boards. That's one way of writing it down. How am I going for time? So I'm smashing that out, which is good, because like I said, we could go, this could be a whole day workshop and I'm only going to do it in like 30, 40 minutes, right? Planning it out, this is the next thing, right? So planning it out is really important. And this is something that I'm definitely very strong at. And this is the mapping of it. I call it mud mapping. And the system I use for mud mapping, okay, is what I call tentative schedules. So I'll share these with you later if you want them. But these are the tentative schedules. And you can do whatever way you like the tentative schedules, okay? So you can make them up on your own. You don't have to use mine. They can be any system you like. But basically, I put things into blocks. Like school teacher hours, you know, you have there's terms, there's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Wednesday's sport day, and you know, that sort of stuff. Well, I break things into blocks, whether it's for a week, whether it's for a month, a quarter, or a year. Okay, so I map things out. Here's actually one that I've done for a client with all their training sessions. Okay, so we know what's going on when the free months are, when the busy months are, what effective months are, and so on. I just happened to notice that there. I wasn't going to use that as an example. But here's these I'll share with you. So I'm a huge fan of tentative schedules. And why are they called tentative schedules? Because you can change them. Things go wrong, things change. All of a sudden opportunities come along that you didn't know were going to come. And then all of a sudden you're going to pivot and change and you're going to reset your goals. So mud mapping is really important. You can do it on a board. You don't need to necessarily do it on paper. But then if you put it on paper, you've got something to refer to it. And I know people go, oh yeah, I just put all that stuff in my Outlook calendar. I go, well, that's really good, but you need to be able to see it. You need to be able to visualize it and follow it and change it. So writing it down, which is the first step, and planning it out on paper, I think is a massive, massive improvement to what most people do. It's that level of commitment. Not only have you written it down, you've now planned it out. So tentative schedules is what I think is a very effective way of using it. I'm a huge fan of that. Reverse engineering for breaking goals down is like that list system, but break it down into what the goal is and then work your way backwards of what the steps are. Okay, so work your way backwards. Reverse engineer it. I use the Olympics example. I want to win Olympics. I then need to qualify here. I need to qualify here. I need to qualify here. So you can reverse engineer it. And then it becomes a countdown to your goal. I think that's a good thing too, right? Especially when someone gives you one, you know, there's no question, that's the date. With yourself, you need to reverse engineer what it is that you want to achieve. The Eisenhower matrix. Anyone know what that is?
No, I haven't heard that one.
That's the urgent, important, not urgent, not important system. So writing it down. So once you've got your list, you've got a visual board, whatever it is, then going, okay, so what's urgent right now? What's important right now? And what's really not that important or not that urgent? So creating a matrix when you're writing it down and prioritizing things. Okay, this is, if there was one thing that was going to change my life next year, it's this one. If I could start 2026 with this, I know I'll have a great 2026. So start with that. But is that important? Yes. Well, I'm going to make sure that's my primary focus for next year, because you have to pick out which ones are going to make the most impact. You have to pick out the goals that have the most impact. Time blocking, that's where you prioritize things. And once again, school teacher hours help with prioritizing. So in other words, it helps you do all your time blocks. So you can actually say, well, this is focus time on this. Focus time on this. This is focus time on this. If you don't set aside time for focusing on your goals, whether it's health or fitness, whether it's business, whether it's family, it's irrelevant. You've got to set aside that focus time to go out and achieve those goals. Less grey, more focus on the things that are important and managing that time. And another system is the daily 3. So each day when you have those goals and you're looking at them, is what are the 3 things I need to do today to help me achieve my goals? And then making sure you follow through with those top 3 things today. Whatever those top 3 things are. If you could do that, it's 15 extra things you've done a week, 15 different extra activities you've done a week, times that by, say, 40 effective weeks a year. Okay, you've done 600 steps towards achieving that goal if you manage to achieve all of them. And that is a huge amount of impact on what it is to achieving a goal over a 12-month journey. So that's I think they're the 2 easy ones, by the way. The 2 easy ones is writing it down and planning it out. Now here's where it gets really difficult, step 3. And this is where most people start to achieve their goals. It's because they start to tell people about their goals. And this is really, really important. And why telling people about your goals is so important, because it's accountability. When you start saying, I am, or I will, I'm going to do something, okay, you become more accountable to what you've just said. The more people you tell, the more accountable you are to people going, you said you were going to do that. Did you do it? So it's not a secret anymore. I'm going to do here, I'm going to do this. And then people say, you see them 6 months later, they go, how'd you go when you said you were going to do that? And you go, oh, that's right. I did tell you I was going to do something. And I did, and then you got to make excuses. So that's why telling people is the hardest, the accountability. It can also be number 2, motivational boost. So when you tell people what you're going to do, it goes back to that crystallizing your thoughts, helps you plan it out. And it can certainly give you that positive reinforcement and motivational boost when you're telling people, that inner energy. Increases focus, number 3, putting your goals into words makes it real. So as you explain it to someone what you're doing and they ask questions about what you're doing, that will help focus your goals and make it more real, that it's actually something you're going to be doing. Use external resources by telling people. All of a sudden you get access to help. You can get knowledge and connections that help you achieve your goals. And the last one is that sense of responsibility. Like I said, you're accountable, so that you have a responsibility now to actually tell the people you've told, to tell them how you're going. And that accountability, I think, is really important. And this is where it gets hard, goal setting. The first 2 are easy. Writing it down, having a vision board, no problems at all. Now making a map, easy. Okay, but telling people is completely different. So that's telling people. So next one now is involving people. Now this one here is really important. As far as involving people go, hi Greg, if you can hear us. Involving people is another. Hey mate, involving people is the next step. So you've written it down, you've planned it out, you're starting to tell people about it. Now involving people is really cool. Okay, this is where you can really leverage and achieve goals twice as fast as everyone else. Okay, and often by telling people, you do get people involved. Okay, so involving people is really important. So 5 ways to involve people. Like when you're telling people, sometimes you'll find an accountability partner. In other words, someone who's going to say, okay, well look, instead of running into them 6 months later, you say, How about we talk again about it in 6 months' time? And I'll let you know how I go. That's your accountability partner, okay? And that can help you a lot, because now you have that accountability and responsibility with a partner, someone that's partnered, or multiple partners. Number 2 is you can share your goals with a mentor or coach. So it's someone that you trust in business. So you're not sharing it with the world necessarily. You're just sharing it with someone really close, like your mentor, your coach, those sort of people. They can help you out. Number 3, and I did this for the world titles. So I built a support network or group. It was something I've done in business a lot, and I've done for a lot of personal things. And this time I did it for the world titles. Locally, I built a community and a group of people so they could follow the journey. And that actually was a quantum leap in the responsibility I had by creating that environment, which is really good. Build a support network or group. So remember, this is involving people in your goal. This is what I'm going to do. And sometimes there's so many people want to help you achieve your goal. They're happy to come along the journey and help you achieve your goals. It's a crazy feeling when people do. You go, wow. And definitely involve your family and friends. Number 4, family and friends. And that way, your people that are really intimate and close to you can be more involved with you and help you focus. And if they get involved, they might help you stay more stricter with your diet. They can let you go to the training you need to do, or break away and do those workshops you need to do. Whatever that extra requirement is, those extra activities, involving family and friends, certainly family, makes a huge difference, so they can give you that emotional support. And number 5 is collaboration, business judo, perfect business judo, which I write about in the book, okay? I can see, Ray, when you have to go. Yep, it's 10:30, got to go to a board meeting. Good to have you here. We'll catch up again soon. Yeah, so what was I saying? I was talking about collaboration with others. So in other words, accountability partner is really good, but collaborating others, let's achieve the goal together. You know, this is a goal we can put together and jointly go and achieve the goal. And the last part of the 5-step system is action, and that's the most important bit. Actually going out and doing what you need to do, as opposed to have written it down, you know, telling people, writing it down, planning it out, telling people, involving people. The last one is action. So when I get into action, it's actually probably the most important one. So you can achieve your goals in reverse rather than the way I've explained it. Most people do goals 1 to 5, but you can achieve your goals going 5 to 1. Even if you never ever wrote down your goal, it doesn't matter. So if you go and do the actions that are required, you involve people in what you're doing, you're telling people what you're doing, okay, and you've got some sort of plan, you'll achieve most of your goals anyway, even if you never wrote it down. So the reality is we do it in 1 to 5, but we achieve them in 5 to 1. So action is the most important part. You know, it turns your ideas into reality. You start to build momentum, you're learning and improving, you're resetting and adjusting, you're measuring your progress, and definitely your accountability towards it. So how do we do it? There's 5 things I've got in this workshop for it. Break your goal into 5 small actionable steps, things that I can do today. Like we had earlier, the 3 things I need to do today to help me achieve my goal. That's one of the action plans you can do. 2, create that daily or weekly action plan, like I said, with the tentative schedules. 3, stay consistent and develop routines. In other words, you know, whatever that routine is, if it's fitness, make sure you do it first thing in the morning before you do anything else. Create a routine and prioritize that routine. Once again, we use that in the planning. Adapt and adjust your plan as you go, because sometimes you do need to adapt and adjust your plan. So basically, action is the most important bit. So that was a crash course on what could be a whole day course on the 5 steps, okay? Which once again is write it down, plan it out, tell people, involve people, and take action. I managed to go through that in about 25 minutes. So Greg, you missed a bit of it. Can you hear me, Greg?
Yeah, sure can, Scott. Sorry. We're just packing the bags to go to the States tomorrow.
double using your time, perfect time duplication.
Yep.
So that was the crash course on the 5 steps. So what the second half of the session is to then look at the goals and then start planning out what we can do. I suggest you, if you've got a bit of paper or something there you can use, it doesn't really matter, is by creating your own list or mind map or tentative schedule. My favorite one is for goal setting is, how do you want to start 2026? What are your goals for starting 2026? And then we work our way backwards. Okay? Because, you know, a lot of people are starting to think about how they want to start 2025. The reality is right now, the momentum you have now, the trajectory you're on right now is how you're going to start next year. You can have an effect in 5 weeks. Don't get me wrong. You can have an effect. But the reality is you've done 45 weeks so far, and that trajectory momentum is what you're taking into next year. What we want to do is have that same momentum and trajectory going into 2026. That's what's the most important thing. So really, I like to sit down and look at that. Has anyone thought about that yet so far, how they want to start 2026? I know I have. It's not an accident.
Yeah, got some
I've thought of
ideas.
some. So.
Yep.
Go,
Would
Trace.
you like to share them or?
Well, that's all right. Yeah, no, for me, I want to start 2026 with at least $10,000 in my bank account.
Yep.
That'd be nice. My ticket and accommodation booked for the Cook Islands.
Yep.
And consistently have 5 clients a month, one-on-one clients, and 2 speaking gigs booked for the year.
I'm writing them down so I can just, once again.
Yep.
Cool. So, and that's the start of 2026. In other words, you've got 50 odd weeks to come back and do your reverse engineering of that. We wanted to do January, February, March, April, maybe you're away, it's Easter and things like that. Well, I can't do much in Easter, you know, so then we go back to May, June, July, you know, so then you start reverse engineering through your tentative schedule, what you need to do, what the steps are. Okay, so it's by June, I need to have this much. By October, I need to have this much. I need to start doing these things and doing that urgent and important quadrant of going, well, what are the things I need to do that are really important to do it?
Yep.
So that's good. At least the good thing is, Tracy, is you've thought about it and now you start to share and tell people about it. What you need to do is prioritize which ones of those are really, really important. Just so you know, I like the Cook Islands is because that's a result-based, and so is the 10,000, a result-based outcome.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of result-based. The one thing I'm really a bigger fan of is action-based goals rather than result-based goals. Okay, so action-based goals. I'll come back to that. In other words, what do I need to do to get 5 clients? That's the goal. And then bringing it back into, okay, so that's actually the result. So now I need to set some goals, the micro goals or the reverse engineering of the actions. What do I need to do? Okay, to have 5 consistent clients a month, for example, probably means you need to have gotten 15 and retained 5 to start with. So you need at least 1.5 clients a month that you need to put on board. So let's say 2 clients, 1 every fortnight. And if I refine it back to 1 every fortnight, what that really means, I need to make, say, 3 prospecting calls or 5 prospecting calls a week. Now that I can manage. I can manage 3 or 5 prospecting calls a week. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's breaking it back into those smaller actionable items as opposed to the result. Because if you do the actions, chances are the result will even exceed your expectations.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So
I can't write them down here, but because I have to bring a pen and paper.
Not a problem at all. Andrew, you're going to share some of yours?
Yeah, well, a big one next year is like a larger style event. So at the moment we've been doing events like bi-monthly.
Yeah.
Well, one is to ramp them up to have more events each month. But I do have a goal to run a larger event where there's actually like workshops and things happening in that event. So again, this is like comes back to earlier where I talk about like I just like the goal is to run a larger event. Like that's sort of like the bigger thing. But now it's getting more specific on what that actually looks like, and coming up with what do we need to do? Because we're already running events for that, but I still need to do a lot more calling, telling people about it, involving more people, and to make that a bigger event, I think. So it's more like a bit of a conference type setting or a forum, as opposed to just the networking groups.
So that's an event through 2025. What about, how do you want to start 2026?
Oh, yeah.
What's Andrew going to look like? What's Andrew? If I was to introduce Andrew at the start of 2026, I'm saying, here's Andrew, and Andrew is this kind of person that does this sort of thing. And does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, one of the things is to run workshops myself. So starting 2026, I'd be running workshops myself and teaching people.
Coaching facilitator, yep.
Yeah, training facilitator, yep. Yeah, that would be 2026.
Yep.
Again, this is probably where I'm at right now, is writing all this stuff, like coming up with this stuff.
Yep. Cool. So another thing you can put down on that list is, you put down that list is things like, well, how many clients, how many events did you want to run? What's 2026? What are you planning on starting 2026 like now?
Yeah.
Wish list, and everything was a perfect world. What would 2026 roll out like?
Yeah.
So maybe that year is 2 major events, or it is 1 major event and 4 micro or minor events and 10 micro events. Whatever that is, I'm going to work with. I'm going to try and do a workshop every week with clients. 1 workshop a week with a bunch of clients. Whatever that looks like, have a think about how you want to start. Because what that means is it gives you your journey for 2025. So everything through 2025 is about building 2026 and getting ready for 2026, and not disappointing, because it's all about the actions you're taking to get the start of 2026 the way you want it.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to suggest one of the challenges for you, Andrew, is more longer term thinking. If I was to have a perfect 2026, what would it look like? It's really hard to have a perfect 2025 because it's going to be a building year.
Yep.
But you can envisage what 2026 looks like in a perfect world, and then work your way backwards. And then different opportunities will come up. You'll go, I'm going to do this. And then someone comes along and says, well, if I give you $50,000 to do this for me, will you do it? You'll go, sure. And it'll be in the vertical of where you are, but completely parallel to where your goals were originally. But because you had those goals and you've got this, what it looks like, it's amazing how the universe comes back to you and helps you out and helps you achieve those goals.
Yep.
So I think you need a bit of help with definitely looking at your 2026 in a more, I'm going to call it more accurate, more defined, more specific about what that would look like. If it was a perfect world, what would 2026 look like?
Yep.
So, and just map that out. Get your tentative schedule and go, what would I be doing? I'd have an event in March, and I'd have an event in June. Whatever it is, whatever those achievements are that you want to achieve.
Yeah.
So you need to start planning out your 2026 season now.
Yep.
Okay. So what's the Olympics look like? They know. Does that make sense? They know when it's on in 20. What's the next one? 2020. Is it 2026? Yeah. No, 28. Next one's on in 2028. They all know. They know what they need to do between now and then. So you're the same. You need to create that.
Yeah.
Cool. So if you need to, once again, we can talk more about it, but that's what you need to do. And then you start involved. You've got 2025 to involve people, tell people. Does that make sense? Plan it out. And, and when you start doing that, it's amazing how you achieve way more than what you ever thought.
That all comes back to what I said earlier about, having these like goals, but being more specific on them.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm working on.
And you 100% have to do it. You know what, Andrew? I get to the end of every year, and I'll give you an example. Actually, first off, before I do that, I get to the end of every year, and I look at all the goals I set. It's amazing how many of them I didn't achieve. But it's also amazing how many of them I achieved or how many things I achieved that weren't even on my goal list at the start of the year.
Yeah.
So if I look back at my achievements for 2024, for example, there's things in there I had no idea that I was going to achieve. I had no idea they were going to turn up as opportunities along the way. Okay.
Yeah.
But what I do know is every year I set goals of what I want to do. Okay. So if I have a perfect year in 2026, what do I want to do to have that perfect year? I need to start 2026 like this. I need to start 2027 like this. And if you're not 2 or 3 years ahead of the calendar, you're probably not far enough. You need to start looking even longer again and then working your way backwards. Like I said, 2030, believe it or not, it's only 260 odd weeks away. Now, for some people, that's paying off a house. For some people, it's paying off their investment property. Those longer term goals, right? But then you micro it back. But at the end of the year, it's amazing how many things have turned up and how many opportunities came that you had no idea until the year started. And that's perfectly fine, which is why there's SMART goals. There's also evaluate and reward, the SMARTer system. Reward or evaluate and reset. So one example of Renet. So the last year I was in the company that I owned, we set a goal. We mapped out what the year was going to look like, our product line. Okay, so we had this big product line of what we were going to develop in that year. We got to the very first week of the year, and I got an email or a message from Colliers International, which is if you're not into commercial real estate, you might not know who they are, but they're a massive commercial real estate firm, global. And the Australian franchise was having trouble with their IT, without getting into detail. They wrote me a message saying, Scott, can you tender for this? Now, this is week 1. We're back at work. So I put the tender in. We won the tender within a few weeks, and we were off and running. Everything we had planned to do for the year, okay, was gone. We were now given a new goal because we were now getting paid to go on a different trajectory, okay? Same business, same IT, same everything else, but what it meant was we actually went down a whole different path. So within 1 week of the year, we chucked out all those goals and had to reset and reevaluate and restart all these new goals within the first week. Well, actually not within the first week, within the first month. So none of those goals were ever going to get achieved because of what happened. Was it a bad thing? No. But if I didn't have that opportunity turn up, we wouldn't have had a trajectory or a roadmap of where we were going. So I still say goal setting is important, but they can change that fast. They can change that fast. So that's about being flexible as well. And that's why it's called a tentative schedule, a mud map or a tentative schedule, not the schedule or the plan. Okay.
Well, just on that, Scotty, I'll actually, I mean, it's probably a bit blurred here, but, you know, I did do that tentative schedule for, like, this is for this year. And it's funny, like I wrote, I did this last year for this year. And funny enough, there's a lot of things on here where I wrote it down and go, I didn't achieve that, but it was something in something else. Like the wording or what it was, I'm like, oh, I actually was going to run that event or that workshop then, but it wasn't called that. It was called something else. But the idea was there, and I'm like, oh, okay, that was funny that I wrote it down, even if it was like in 6 months ahead of time. I actually did something in that month related to it.
Yeah.
It wasn't as specific as what it was detailed as, but it was related. So it was funny doing that and then marking it down and having those, it's relatable.
So I'm a huge fan of once you get your list of, your wish list is then doing the action-based goals. So if you want to lose, I'll do an example. You want to lose 10 kilos for the year, it's only 1 kilo a month. 250 grams a week, it's not a lot. Okay, so you break it down those smaller actionable things. What do I need to do? So what do I need to lose 250 grams a week? Well, actually not a lot. A kilo a month's not a lot. It really isn't. You can achieve those smaller ones. 10 kilos is a lot. But over 12 months, it's not really. In fact, it's the same way it went on. You probably only put on 250 grams a week. A year later, you're 10 kilos heavier, and you go, wow, gee, where'd that come from? Okay, so it's the same thing in reverse. It's actually very easy to do the reverse, but you still need to set the goal and what do I need to do? To lose 250 grams a week is not a lot with a little bit of exercise, a little bit of smart thinking, as an example. Okay, so I'm going to change this here, change that there, do this here, do that there. Really simple. And most people
my bathroom scales.
Right?
I think you've hacked my bathroom scales.
But that's as simple as it is. And business is the same. It's small little things. I wrote about it today on the post I did on LinkedIn. It's just 1%. Yeah, 1% more than the average, or more often than not, give that 6 or 12 months, you're going to be leagues ahead of everyone else. You got anything, Greg, for you for the start of 2026?
Yeah, so apologies to all those here that I was late. Basically packing my bag and printing out itineraries for my 6:30 flight tomorrow. So I'm off to the States for 3 weeks for the final year wrap up, and also to set. We work to a thing called RRE, so roles, responsibilities, and expectations. So this coming week I'll be setting those formally for 2025, and also fleshing out some of what's going to be happening in 2026. I tend to divide the activities into sort of 3 major subgroups. One of them is the business development side, so visiting customers, and I tend to have a fairly set track on how I do that. I'll go to Thailand in February and Indonesia in March, and I did do all of that type of travel in a fairly set pattern. It only changes if there's customer need or a particular project that I've got to travel for. So that's basically, business development type activities. I also throw into that conferences, etc. Then there's project-based needs. So work that we have actually won where there's a project taking place, and these things gestate over a long time and then go into construction. And so the work that we're winning today will be constructed in projects in 12 to 18 months' time. So those things start appearing on the calendar throughout 2026, and they're the activities that I'll be undertaking in 2026 to actually execute those projects. So they're the 2 prime subgroups, and they're pretty fixed. And I call that, that's actually the execution phase. And then there's a third phase. It's a little bit random. It's speculative things. Things that pop up on the radar that you haven't. Sorry.
What was that last word?
Speculative. Things that just pop up out of the blue, unplanned. Those. Those Collier's Jardines phone calls that you get at the last minute that could be a really good opportunity that you don't really necessarily get to plan for, but they land on your radar, and you plan for those. So my 12-month calendar is thoroughly pinned down. My 24-month calendar, so what we're now talking about 2026, is grey. It's firming but grey. It's a little bit more like Jello. It'll move around a bit, and it's yet to be locked down. To keep it short, in amongst all of that, there has to be short and long-term goals and rewards. My 2026 long-term reward is to take some time in Europe. So that one will be through the winter months of 2026. That's a big goal for me. As for business planning, I've had a pretty successful 2 years. So the kind of growth that I've had over the next 2 years, to continue that through 2026 is going to be a mammoth task. I used to represent about 5 to 10% of the US revenue, but now the Asia Pacific market's 20 to 25% of their revenue. So it's becoming quite serious, and there'll be more people involved. So 2025-26 for me introduces a new phase where my team grows. So that's something to keep an eye on. Replication of myself.
Well, what I know with you is they're large projects. So you, by nature, have to be 2 years ahead in your calendar because of the projects that you're doing. So, and it's funny, like most people are not, unless they're forced to do it, aren't that far ahead in the calendar. Some people struggle to know what they're doing next week, let alone next year. Being 2 years ahead in your calendar is a typical scenario of what you would do. But certainly, I'm always 2 or 3 years ahead in my calendar. I'm always, like you said, grey, fuzzy, but I'm already thinking about what I want to do in 2027.
Yep, that's right. And ultimately, when you're talking about a company that in the background has a factory of 200 and something people, that machine needs to be constantly fed. So to keep it's like a sausage machine, you've got to keep up with the mince, but it's constant. So we are thinking years down the track and planning for that.
Not Elon Musk. Amazon, Bezos.
Bezos,
So
yeah.
Jeff Bezos, he says that he's always 2 to 4 years ahead in his calendar. What happens today at Amazon is already being executed by people, and he doesn't have any involvement in today's activities. So what's going on today at Amazon is got nothing to do with him. It's all being executed because of what they started thinking 2 or 4 years ago.
Correct.
And that's now just someone actually following through with what they've been planning for 2 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And that's how far ahead he is consistently. So right now he's already thinking about what 2030 looks like. And he's going to bring that down to 2029, 28, and then he's going to pay people to execute it in 26 and 25. And that's how that stuff works. And that's how successful people do it.
People like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos spend a lot of time with futurists that are looking decades down the track.
So on a day-to-day basis, what we can do is do the simple things like how do we want to start 2026? So in your case, your business side, Greg, is fairly consistent because of what you do. Now it's just personal. Now you're going to put all that effort in. What do I want to achieve personally? Okay, and then setting aside that time. Because if you don't set aside those rewards, okay, you're going to get to the end of 27 and go, I still haven't had that trip to Europe. I still haven't had that surf trip, or my health has gone and failed, or whatever that thing's going to be. So certainly for you, Greg, your business side is, once again, I said earlier, it's a lot easier when you work for someone because you get given some of this agenda. It's a lot easier when you're a sports person because you get given the term, your home and away games, when the grand finals are on. But when you're in business for yourself, you have to come up with that whole agenda yourself.
Correct.
So the benefit you have working for a large organization is that the one thing you have to not lose is your personal goals.
Yep.
So how do I want to start 2026 myself? What's 2026 going to bring me after my hard work for 2025? So it's the personal goals that matters more. So you have an advantage. Some of it's done for you, especially around the work side of things.
Right.
So that was a crash course on what I can spend all day on setting goals. The follow through from here is to, like Andrew showed, is I can share some mud maps. I can share these with you. You can make your own up just on a bit of paper. I used to have an A4, in fact, if I find one here, like an A4 book, and I would just scribble into it all the time. What have I got here? I should travel with this. Oh, look at that. Just opened up on the back page. Now that means nothing to anyone, but it did to me when I did it. Okay. That's one thing
That's
there.
art, Scotty.
That is good art, isn't it? That's as good as my art gets, by the way. The one thing I'm not is a graphic designer. You know, so I've got pages of stuff here, lists and things like that, right? So you get yourself out a book, start mapping it out. Doesn't matter whether you achieve them or not. What matters is that you start planning out and trying to predict what the future looks like. And you'll then achieve things that you never thought you could. And opportunities will turn up that you didn't even know were coming. But it's the action that makes the most difference.
And did you know you can take a photo of those lists and doodles and everything and upload them into your AI, and it can map it all out for you.
Make it look a bit better.
Yeah.
Make it look a bit better. I tell you what, here's a good one.
I'm creative on paper, so mind mapping's awesome. I love it. And I can sit there, and colours are really awesome for me. Like I always put things in colours. It's the way my brain works. But I'm also very particular and anal, I suppose, about it being super organised. So I can now take photos of what I doodle and how it all looks on paper, take a photograph of it and upload it into my AI, and it gives me, like, puts it more into like your what do you call it, like the calendar thing that you've got there,
yeah,
my map or whatever it is, and actually create that for me. So
I'm not sure to read my writing, to tell you the truth.
Hey, you'd be surprised. Be surprised. I suppose I've got really good writing because of being an ex-teacher. So that's a bonus. But yeah, it's really cool now what you can do. Like, I am totally with you, Scotty, on the physicality of writing and it then having that emotional connection with your goal when you're doing things like that. And it does some really weird shit with your brain. Totally in agreement with that. But I know a lot of business people also like to have it looking fairly logical and fairly like anal, I suppose, for want of a better word, up on their wall as well. So that's just a way that you can do it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I haven't tried AI to get things to, like I just took some scribble notes then of what you guys said. It'd be interesting to see if I put that in AI, whether it would read my writing.
If it can read doctor's handwriting, then I'm sure it can read yours.
But it needs to be able to read mine, and I'm as good as a doctor.
But even your whiteboard, you know how like sometimes you'll be putting on a workshop or something.
Yeah.
But you can take a photo of that and upload it into AI and ask it to create a graph from it or some infographic or whatever, and it will do that. Or put it into an Excel spreadsheet or mind map it.
What AI tool is that one? Is that not ChatGPT or something like that?
Yeah, you can do it in that, or you can do it in Claude.
Claude, same. Okay.
Yep. It's just all a matter of your prompting and your the instructions, basically educating it.
Cool. Well, that sort of brings us to a close. That's an hour. There was, like I said, about 10 people registered. I sent out the manual alert, so maybe the automated alerts didn't actually go out to remind people that it was on. So, and a lot of people register anyway for the replay, but I'm not sure if we'll do the replay today or not. Do you mind if we do the replay, Tracy?
Nah, go for it.
G-Man?
No, all good.
Yeah, cool. So we'll have a look at it at the end and we'll decide if we want to put it out, make it as a public replay. But if we do, and you've been watching this, next time we run one of these sessions, come along, because this is that 1% more than what most people do, is attending these sort of conferences and events. And every time you come, you learn something new, or you're reminded of something that you did know in the past, and it re-energizes that inner knowledge base that you have, that inner confidence to go out and achieve what you want to achieve. And this was about goal setting, but this could have been about sales, it could have been about leadership, it could be about AI, it could be about anything. So actually, you can Brian Gill. He's from New York, and he's just joining now. We'll say hi to Brian from New York when he gets in. So
yes.
Might have been time.
How are you doing?
Good, mate. Yourself?
Fine, thank you. I apologize for the confusion on my time change, but that's my goal. One of my number one goals is to remember that Australia is ahead of Eastern Standard Time by quite a ways.
By an hour. So you're actually on time in New York.
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
So well done.
Yeah.
We're just wrapping up, but you can stay online anyway, Brian, and we'll have a quick chat after it anyway. So I'd love to catch up with you and talk. So we're just wrapping up for the hour. So you're not 1 minute late, you're an hour and 1 minute late.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks for coming. We'll wrap it up, and we'll see you all at the next one. And if you need help with anything else, just reach out. That's what we're here for. And there's a series of videos online that you go watch, and they're all free to watch, right? So on system1357.com. So meantime, thank you. Thanks, everyone, for coming. And hang around, Brian.
Thanks, guys. Take care.